Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm MrTieDye. Today we're going to do a quantum V. It was one that I had worn in one of my other videos, and I've had a few people asking about it, so I decided to go ahead and do a video on it. It's going to be similar to the quantum scrunch, but we're just going to do it in the V shape. And actually I guess this would be considered a quantum spider, because there is just a bit of the highlight of a spider on there. So anyways, we're going to accomplish that right now. So what I'm starting with is a t-shirt that's been soaked in soda ash. It's been spun out so it's barely damp, and then I fold it in half by tucking one sleeve into the other. I have a video, I'll put a link to that down in the description box. But this gives me the front and the back of the t-shirt separate, which helps with the evenness of your side-to-side design. If you just fold your t-shirt straight in half, then that puts the two sides of the front of the t-shirt with two things in between them, the back of the t-shirt, or vice versa. So then when you put your dies on, they don't get quite as even. This way, when I scrunch this up, then the front and the back of the t-shirt are both together. So they're going to be fairly even side to side with each other. So anyway, that's my preferred method for folding this half, is tucking one sleeve in. So be sure and check out that video. It's called Centering or Folding a T. So we're going to get started on this. So what I do with a washable marker, I just draw a V shape onto the t-shirt just to give me a guideline for where we're folding at, and then I'll take that line that I drew and I'm going to fold the whole thing up. So I'm grabbing the top and the bottom, so I mean the back and the front of the t-shirt, so all of the layers are being folded up. So just like in the quantum scrunch, that's what we're doing here. So what I'm going to do to start with is fold this crease back along over to here, and then here I'm just going to gather this stuff up kind of randomly. So as I fold that side around, then I'm going to do some extra little scrunches in here just to gather some of that excess fabric up, but not neatly. I'm doing it kind of randomly, which is what gives me then the random shapes on the t-shirt here. So I'm folding that back along, but it's not, this line isn't laying next to it because there's all this stuff gathered here in the middle, and that's kind of what we want. So on the other side, I'm just going to fold it back. I'm not going to gather a bunch because I want to leave a bunch of the chest space to put the spider on. So I'm not doing as much of this. That's when I do the quantum scrunch. We do it back and forth both ways. We're gathering all that excess up. On this one, we're gathering on just half of the line here. So we're going to fold that up, and then we're going to immediately fold that back again, and we're going to gather more of this t-shirt up. So I'm just doing some kind of a vertical lines here, and I can do some horizontal ones and fold them over a little bit. The main thing is just to create some different interesting shapes in there by bringing the t-shirt up and folding it a little bit and then folding it on itself. So I hope that's making sense as I describe it here. But this here is going to be all of this lower part, all of the rainbow part of the t-shirt is all on this side of the line. So when I fold back this way, I'm not bothering to gather up all of this excess space. I'm just folding it back just so that we can go back this way again and put these extra creases in as I fold the rest of the shirt up. So we'll go back this way once, and then I'm going to raise the last bit of this line up across the sleeve here, and then we're going to fold the rest of it going back the other way again. So this here is about where I'm going to end up at, so I'm adding these extra scrunches in here, these extra pleats. Like I say, these are just random pleats. They're not all going the same direction. They're going different crossways here. And the more random you can get that, then the better your V shape is going to come out. So now I'm going to tie this up with some kite string here. So right along my line here that I drew is zigzagging back and forth down through here. I'm going to go right on the edge of where that line comes over here next to the center part of the chest. That's where I'm tying this off at now. So, and I'm tying this nice and tight here. I mean, not tight like sinew tight, but I'm using my hand to squish this together as I tighten that on, but I'm also using my hand to push down on it because I want to keep everything on the same level. I don't want things buckling up on me. Okay, and now I have this last bit of the shirt tail here, so I'm going to do the same type of things in any of these creases. I'm just going to create kind of a little bit of a V fold in there. So I'm just bringing part of the t-shirt up, laying it down. So I have these creases that are kind of the accordion folds that are shaped like a V here. And then I can come down and under the t-shirt, right up in between there, and pull that tight together. And then with each one of these, I can open them up and do the same type of thing on them. And once again, if you can do some odd shaped creases in there, so I'll bring some up, I'll pinch it, instead of going sideways, I'll pinch it going up and down, and then I'll twist it over. So that's just going to add more detail into these fine little pockets here. And I just find that if I get that tied nice and tight, that just really helps define the shapes even more. Which is another reason I like to use the kite string. And I do have a video on the kite string and sinew. I'll put a link to that down in the description box. So I got this one last piece left here, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to kind of open that crease up some. And then I'm just going to tuck that in. I'll bring this up basically to just put another accordion fold, one of those V-shaped or U-shaped accordion folds in here, and then just twist that last bit up and run my kite string up through there. And then sometimes I'll go ahead and wrap it around sideways just to pinch that tighter together and close it up. Okay, so now coming back over to this other side, I'm just straightening some of these folds out a little bit. And then we're going to tie this last bit off here, leaving this V shape here. So like I say, this here, these 2 points here are the 2 edges where my lines zigzag back and forth here. I can see these 2 points right here. So that's where I'm tying my line off at then. Cinch that down nice and tight. And then I'll usually go back over the whole thing and just tighten everything up a little bit more. I like this fold to be nice and tight, and then from there I can set this aside to dry, because being so tied up so tightly, it's not going to take the dye unless you're doing a ice dye on this. But if you're going to do liquid dye, then you'll need to let this sit and dry. And even ice dye and it might come out better if it's dry when you dye this. Okay, now for this chest part here. So here's the top of my collar right here, and then of course the bottom of the V. So I'm just going to go kind of in the middle of that, which is basically putting the, a little bit below the neckline there, probably 6 inches or so below the neckline. And then I'm going to twist going down, because that's the direction I like for my spiders to sit. If you twist it the other going up the t-shirt, then they'll just turn the design upside down. So you can do your spiders either direction, but I like them this way. So now I'm just making sure that all my folds from the edge of the quantum V here, I'm just lining those out over here. So this is just going to add more texture into the V shape. So I just twist that up until I can't wrap it in there anymore, and then I just tuck everything else in around it so that everything is kind of scrunched or twisted and lays nice and flat. Okay, so now I'm going to draw, like I say, I can see my wavy line. That was just for the initial folding. Now for the dyeing, I'm going to draw a line right next to that. So my curvy line, just so you know where they're at, they're right here. They come up, this one peaks here, comes over, peaks there, comes back, and peaks there. So all three of them are on this side of the line. This is the quantum scrunch. The rest of this is going to be the spider V up at this top part. So I'm just making sure to draw this line so when I'm dyeing this I know what part to dye what color. So there is the Quantum Spider VT. So I'm going to let this dry for a couple days, and then I'll be back with some gloves and some dye and get some color on this. Thank you for watching. Well, this thing's been sitting for a few days and is all nice and dry, so it's ready for some dye. And anytime that I'm letting something dry out completely before I add dye to it, I will spray it with soda ash water. So I just mix it up and put it in one of these spray bottles. And that just helps. Sometimes when you put the dye on to a dry t-shirt, it wants to roll off rather than soak in, and spraying it with this soda ash water helps stop that. So I'll just kind of give it just a quick spray. I'm not soaking it down. I'm just getting the top of the folds or whatever just damp just a little bit, and that just allows the dye to soak in. So here was my line. This part up here is the spider V part of the T, and the rest of it was the quantum scrunch part of the T. So what I'm going to do to start with is put in some gray. I guess first off I could mark my line so I know where I'm at here. So I'm just going to use some regular black dye here and just draw myself a line right there. And draw it on both sides. And then if I want just a little bit of detail to show up, I'll add a color underneath the black, and in this case I'm going to put gray in here, which will give me just a little bit of detail within this design here. So usually I'll just give it a light coat in there. The spider part is where I want the detail to show up, so that's what I'm coloring, but you can color the whole thing up here if you want. That comes down to just personal choice. And for me, I like to give the spider part of the T just a little bit more detail. So now I'm going to use black and just coat the whole thing. That is the spider V part of it. And now the rest of this, let me soak up some of this excess dye here. The rest of this I'm going to dye in rainbow colors, and what I like to do just to make the colors stand up is make sure that I dye a different color. I like a lot of contrast, so I make sure that I dye a different color on the bottom side than I do on the top. So what I have lined up here is my rainbow colors, and I'm going to put all the reds and yellows and oranges on the top part, and I'm going to flip it over and put the other colors on the bottom. And you can mix and match this however you like. So I'm just going to dye this up in various lines. I'm kind of going at just a little bit of a diagonal here. Really, it's just about kind of mixing this up a little bit, not anything exact. That lends itself to the quantum scrunch part of this fold. So you can kind of mix and match however you like. Just the main thing is having a different color on the back side. So I'm just randomly coloring this, and each time I do it, it's a little bit different. So this here isn't my same way that I do it each time. Sometimes I'll do nice straight lines across, sometimes jagged lines, sometimes spots. So I recommend just kind of mixing it up and trying different things and seeing what kind of results you get. And they should be pretty good to put, no matter how you put your dyes on, as long as you have a different color on the back side than you do on the front. And this time I happen to start with my lighter colors first. Usually I do start with the darker colors, and for whatever reason I grabbed the light colors this time, so we're just going to go for it and see how that comes out. Okay, so there's the one side. I'll flip this over. And then, like I say, on the other side, I'm going to put my other colors from the rainbow on here, and I'm going to do them in a different pattern just to make sure that all of the colors get a little bit of each one of these colors I'm using mixed in with them. That probably didn't make sense. So the orange, the yellow, and the fuchsia all should have a little bit of green, blue, and purple mixed in with them, because I'm just randomly dyeing this here. And there will be some color mixing here. So I'm putting this purple on here, and it's going down into the yellow and the orange. But that's kind of what I'm wanting. I'm wanting to mix up my colors and have some color blending. So with the quantum scrunch, now granted I'm not completely saturating everything in this fashion, but to have just a little bit of that color mixing going on, I like that, just to give a little bit more contrast, a little bit more of the detail comes out in this fashion. I'm going back through and putting a second coat on these colors here, just because I'm starting to see just a little bit of white show up, which just means that there, as the dye has gone in, it's left some of these fibers on the top, which means there's room for more dye. So I look for the little white fibers and add more dye to those areas. And there is the Quantum Spider VT. So what I'm going to do is let this batch for 48 hours. I'm going to batch this with my lighter colors up, just so that whatever is soaking down into the tea isn't going to mix. So if I put the blue and green and purple on the top, it might mix in too much with my lighter colors here. So I will batch this for 48 hours, and I'll have it back here for you in about 2 seconds. Okay, MrTieDye back here again for another reveal video. So this one here was on the Quantum Spider VT. So we got all the ties cut here, and I'm going to slowly open this thing up and see what we got here. So there's the Quantum Scrunch part, and there's the V, and then the spider. Let's open this up and see just how much of it we can see. Although the real test is once it's all the way washed out, because sometimes The reveal could be deceptive here because not all of the colors are washed out the way that they need to be. So anyways, there's the Quantum Spider V.